We're going to stand at this time for the Morris American prayer, facing the east, 5 fingers up on the left, 2 fingers right, and repeat after Sister Monique.
Islam,
Islam,
Allah,
Allah,
Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
peace, freedom,
and justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah, protector,
Allah is my guide,
my God,
my salvation,
and my salvation,
by night, and by day, Holy Prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Noble Jewelry,
Drew Ali. Amen. Do his prophet Drew Ali. Islam, and welcome family. Welcome family, and I'm glad everybody made it safely. Let's give praise and thanks to safety. Islam. I rise, I'm Sheikh Shatik El, and I rise, I give praise to Allah, I give honor to his prophet, I give all that the prophet has done and brung, I give honor to all things that pertain to Islam. We always begin with the Moorish divine and national, with the Moorish divine constitution and bylaws. That's the cornerstone of this movement. Salvation, Allah, unity. I need to grab my glasses. Act 1, the Grand Sheikh and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple is in power to make and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The assistant Grand Sheikh is the assistant Grand Sheikh in all affairs. If he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2, all meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Because it was on a Friday the first man was formed into flesh, it was on the Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended to his Father God Allah. But that caused Friday is a holy day for Muslims all over the world. Islam. Act 3, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. But it's to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4, all members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government because by being Moorish American, you are part and parcel of this government and must what? Live the life accordingly. Act 5, this organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but what? To obey hereby. Act 6, with us all members must proclaim their nationality. And we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government and know that they are not Negroes, black folks, colored people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is why the great God of the universe ordained the prophet Noble Ali to save to redeem his people, excuse me, thank you, from their sinful ways. Islam, thank you, Grand Sheikh. The Moorish Americans are the descendant of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Acts 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish sign symbol of America. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband, look after your children, and take care of the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of uplifting of fallen humanity. Most, all Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet Noble Ali through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Islam, give me 1 second. I like this here. I'm going to read this passage just before I bring up Brother Omari. Religious controversy, because there's a lot of controversy in these times about what real religion is, versus religion versus pseudo religion. That's what I like to say. In this age, there is still much religious controversy as to the right thing. Big and powerful ministers have come to the conclusion that something is wrong. Some say it is the Ten Commandments. Others say there's a lack of sincerity in the purpose of the churches. Still, others think it is all worthless and not fit for the time it takes to attend them. However, whatever their final decision might be, it is certain they will make a change or try to make. The lack, the fact of the matter is that there have always, the fact of the matter is they have always had only a reflection of the truth and not the real thing. Like one who holds up to the sun a mirror and casts a few of its diverted rays in a different direction. So have done with the truth that is supposed to have come from the east. There are but few people who know what the truth is about man, and that few know that it is foolish to try to impart it to the ignorant. Although the ignorant has finished um, her college, he is a fool right on, being trained to jump through hoops, to jump through a hoop. The longer he stays in the schools, the better he can jump, and the more vivid will he defend his jumping. From the east comes all light, but though the sun is hanging at high noon, the blind cannot see. The same the, the same is the Islamic creed from the east was brought to the Asiatics of America by the Prophet Noble Ali and offered to those who were sick at heart, tried for many years, yet they are blind and cannot see the light. Nor is the prophet trying to put new wine into old skins, for he knows that it will burst them. Still, he has the only remedy for the nations, the remedy brought by Jesus, Muhammad, Confucius, and all of the other prophets, which remedy is what? Truth. The nations do not want the truth, it is too stern. But until they accept it and find out where it is, there will continue to be religious controversy. So I just felt that that passage is very important and should have been read. I'm not going to elaborate on it, for time purposes. At this time, I'm going to step aside and bring up Brother Omari. He's going to do the 101s. Islam?
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Islam family. First I rise, giving all praises to the great architect of the universe, Father God Allah, giving honors to his prophet, Noble Ali, give honors to temple number 10, I give honors to the grand sheikh and sheikhs of temple number 10, and also want to give honors to all Moors in attendance and all Moors online. Islam? Gratitude, sister. We go with the Quran questions for Moorish children, because we are all children in the eyes of Allah. 1. Who made you?
Allah.
2. Who is Allah?
Allah.
3. Can we see him? 4. Where's the nearest place we can meet him? 5. Who is Noble Ali? 6. What is a prophet? 7. What is the duty of a prophet? 8. Who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America? 9. What year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
10. Where? 11. Where was Noble Ali born?
The state of North Carolina, 1886.
12. What was his nationality?
Moorish American.
13. What is your nationality?
Moorish American.
14. Why are we Moorish Americans?
Born in America.
15. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
Uplifting and fallen humanity.
16. How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish American? 17. What is our religion?
Islamism.
18. Is that a new or is that an old time religion?
Old time religion.
19. What kind of flag is the Moorish?
The red flag, 5 stars.
20. What do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
21. How old is our flag?
50,000 years old.
22. Which is our holy day?
Friday.
23. Why?
Friday is the man that's going to be in the best form.
And it was on a Friday.
24. Who is Jesus?
He was a prophet of Allah.
25. Where was he born?
Bethlehem, Judah, the house of David.
26. Who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
27. Will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Son of the great prophet, Abraham, yes.
28. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth?
See, Israelite people behind the oppression of the Palestinians in Europe, who governed a portion of Palestine at that time.
29. How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
30. What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabitess.
31. What is the modern name for Moabites?
Morocco,
32. Where's the Moroccan Empire?
northwest of Mexico,
33. What is the modern name for a Mexican?
Africa.
34. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
So,
35. Where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
37. Did the angel give to a child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes,
but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
38. What is an angel?
An angel is the Lord of Allah manifested in human flesh.
39. What are angels used for?
To carry out messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations.
40. What is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah who is sent to bring the everlasting gospel of Allah.
41. What is the everlasting gospel of Allah?
It is the saving power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by his prophet.
42. What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that they may be long upon the earth's land, which the Lord thy God has given thee.
43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12.
44. Where did he teach?
In
the African
Europe.
45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
46. What did Jesus say that would make you free?
True.
47. What is truth?
Truth is false.
48. What is ought?
Ought is Allah.
49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
50. What other name do we give truth?
Holy breath.
51. What have you to say about holy breath?
All we can say is, it is great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen.
52. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden,
53. Where's the Garden of Eden?
in the land of Canaan, in the city of Mecca.
54. What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
55. What is the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of the MST of A.
56. What are the words of AC of the MST of A?
Adopted with the Lord Christ of America, third heaven.
Who were Adam and Eve?
They are Muslims and fathers of the Hebrew family.
58. Where did they go?
They went to Asia.
59. What is the modern name given to the children?
Asiatics.
60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away?
Angels.
61. What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
62. What is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
63. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
Yes, we all have the same father and mother.
64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
66. How many cells are there?
2.
67. Name them.
Higher self and lower self.
68. What people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
69. What people represent the lower self?
Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
70. What is the higher self?
The higher self is the blood, virtue, harmony, life. The free justice, mercy, love, and right.
71. Can the higher self pass away?
No.
72. Why?
Because it is alive in man.
73. What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, murder, theft, and everything that harms.
74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to a foreign earth, seeking my name devoured.
76. Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
77. When was his time declared out?
When you know Jesus is the cross.
78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did he have reference to? 80. Did Jesus say he will return to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the person into whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror.
82. Was Satan to be bound in?
Satan was to be bound in heart.
83. When was the head of Satan taken off? 84. By whom?
By Muhammad.
85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian.
86. Negro.
Negro was never given to a regular
West Africa
by
by
Moors
Moors.
because it contained black water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Color means anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Ethiopian,
Color
Charles,
means anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No,
91. Why?
because man is made in the image and not likeness of God.
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity, purity means God, and God means ruler of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times as being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is the shadow of our lower self and will pass away.
96. Who made the devil?
Elohim.
97. Who is Elohim?
Elohim is the seven created spirits that created everything that was, is, and evermore to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
Seven eyes of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are there in a year?
7 days.
Islam.
Islam.
That will conclude our 101s, family. And we're going to start off today's lesson in the Holy Quran, chapter 3, Elihu's lessons, the unity of life. This is what we're going to set today's lesson. That's how we're going to start off today's lesson, unity of life. So as before we get in, I just want to say when we read the Quran, we start with the chapters. It's Elihu's lessons. Anyone know what Elihu? So it's out of the Bible, and I believe in the book of Job's. He's a Hebrew priest, yes, in Job's. And he was pretty much, you say, a vanguard of Jehovah. He defended Jehovah's word. So I just throw the token out there that the prophet called it Elihu's lessons, the unity of life, because he did back then what we're doing today is to protect the movement and be hopefully, remain vanguards of this movement and be pure in the heart. Again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, "No man lives unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will love and not demand love in return. For they will not do to other men what they would not have other men do unto them." Now 5, here go the answers. There are two selves, the higher self and lower self. The higher self is human spirit, clothed with soul, made in the form of Allah. The lower self, the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of higher self, distorted by the murky ethers of the flesh. The lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is a lying man and will not pass away. The higher self is the embodiment of truth. The lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. So I just want to stop right there. So he said the higher self is the embodiment of truth, and the lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. So falsehood manifest could be like today people believing that they're black. That's falsehood, but it is made manifest through falsehood because that's what we accepted, what we've been given, and what we've been told. And we haven't had a true minister or priest other than a prophet to bring us truth. So we believe being black and African American to be true. So that's falsehood manifested in a form of truth, but it's certainly not the truth. 9, the higher self, 10. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the higher self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. The higher self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life. The lower self is rich in promises, but poor in blessedness and peace. It offers pleasure, joy, and satisfying gain, but gives unrest, misery, and death. So the lower self is rich in promises, but poor in blessedness. Anyone give a demonstration on that? Tutati?
I really rose and probably gave my faith. And
Yes.
this is the reason why I read religious controversy, because of the passage that you are in now. I didn't know that you was going to go to the creed, but it's perfect. Because the prophet said the nations do not want the truth.
It's too stern.
He said it is too stern. But until they accept it and find out where it is, there will continue to be religious controversy. See, a lot of people got the concept of religion wrong. True religion is law and government through principle, which is civics. That is true religion. Islam isn't. And until the nations recognize well, what the truth lies in them, the truth is in the heart, then it will continue to be the way things are now. So I think that this passage I'm speaking on now brings a little bit more clarity to what your question is asking.
Listen, anyone else? All right, continue. 13. It gives men apples that are lovely to and pleasant to the smell. Their cores are full of bitterness and gall. If you would ask me what to study, I would say yourselves. And when you well have studied them, and then would ask me what to study, I would reply yourselves. Why did the prophet say to continue to study yourself, and then when you've done that and ask him what to study next, he says yourself? I just exercise my senses on that. Is one that comes to me is that knowledge is infinite, which is some people say infinite, I say infinite, but knowledge never is incapacitated. So as man unfolds, your God unfolds. For today, God, tomorrow, God is not. So you have to continue to study self and understand self, overstand self, because that's what it's all about. It's self. That's when the prophet has brought. I give you what I did. I did what I did. I did what I had to do to save the nation. Now save yourself. So comprehend self, study self, become one with Allah, Islam.
And to further extend the study of self, what you are embedded with what Lucifer said, Satan, devil,
Dragon and beast. Mm-hmm.
So if you are to conquer these, if one is to conquer these spirits of self, they have to study self each and every day because these spirits are steady sticking their heads up every time you're tempted each and every day. So that's why if you were asking what to study again, I would say the self. Because as you said, I'll cap the phrasing off. The prophet said, I've given you all you need to save a nation. Now take it and go save yourself.
Islam. And that could also be as far as the literature. Because how did he uplift the Moorish American? By teaching them to be themselves. Islam. So then now 15 goes right into what Shatik said. He who knows well of his lower self knows the illusions of the world, knows of all the things that pass away. And he who knows his higher self knows Allah, knows well the things that cannot pass away. So the more as you unfold self, the more you can battle inside of your head as far as how to defeat certain things. So as you travel and get to know self, so one who knows well of his lower self knows the illusions of the world. Therefore, you are taking advantage less than others. Right? If I say, Brother Mark, this vessel is $10,000. If those are the illusions of the world, because in your mind you know this material is not worth that. To the deaf, dumb, and blind, they say, "Oh, here go 10,000 notes. This is mine." So, and that's just a small sample, but it varies and varies and varies every day with any and everything that we do, all the way down to, when they say Moors don't eat flesh. We go into the reasons on why. Some people will argue and say humans should eat flesh, but those who know wells of the illusions of lower self would know better. So removing those illusions, I wouldn't have an argument or a confrontation with a flesh eater because I know the truth, and truth cannot change. 16. Oh, Islam, brother. Oh, okay, Islam. 16. Thrice blessed is the man who has made purity and love his very own. He has been ransomed from the perils of the lower self and is himself, his higher self. Men seek salvation from an evil that they deem a living monster of neither world. And they have gods that are but demons in disguise, all powerful yet full of jealousy and hate and lust. I don't know if some of you heard this in the churches where they say, my God is a jealous God." That's just to give a demonstration on that. Sheikh Shati.
That goes back to the illusions of the world.
Indeed.
Jewelry,
Mm-hmm.
fancy cars, nice houses, what they think is money. These are all the things that we get wrapped up in. So we lose sight of the real purpose is to study self. It goes right back to self. All of these are selves that we fall victim to. Each and every day we fall victim to something that our selfish selves want. So as we fight that, we become stronger and stronger. And as we fight that, we become one, which is true. It's a hard battle because the flesh is very strong. So temptation is strong. But if you study long enough, you will defeat it and become truth and know these illusions and rise above. If Islam.
Islam. Well, also, I had a conversation with him the other day. We was talking about finances, and one thing I say about finance is that everyone always heard the same motto is that you can't take money with you. So if you spend all this physical time creating a lot of finance and abundance of finance, it's not saying that anyone, but the simple fact of the matter is when we leave here, you can't take it with you. So what is the true purpose?
Well,
If it's not to obtain and gain money, then what is the true purpose? Because some would say, I'm here to get money. And if you can't take it with you when you leave, then that don't sound right. Islam.
I have a question. When you say what is the true purpose, what do you?
The true purpose, Islam.
All praise is due to Allah, honor to His Prophet Noble Jew Ali, to the Grand Sheikhs, and all that pertains to Islam. When you say, what's the purpose? What are you referring to?
The purpose of self. What are you here for?
Oh, okay. So I'm a little lost when you say what's the purpose, and you referring to saving money.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's not necessarily saving money, but having or obtaining finance. Because some people would say, the majority of people would say, we're here to make money, because money is you need money for everything. You need money to do everything. So a lot of people put money above all other places of life. But what I'm saying is you cannot take it with you. So how is that the end all of all if you cannot take it with you when you leave here in the physical? So what does money really mean?
Okay, I mean, I can understand and agree with you to that point as far as you can't take it with you, but we still need it to function here while we live. If a person, when people say you can't take it with you, along with that statement has to come something like why worship it or why save it and store it if you can't take it with you. But technically speaking, we save it and we store it for a tomorrow, even though tomorrow is not promised to us. We save it and we store it for tomorrow. But when we store beyond the abundance of what we need, I think that's when we start to cater to our. We don't cater to our lower self as long as we're saying, okay, tomorrow I have to pay these bills. Next month I have to pay these bills. I have to make sure I have the money to pay these bills next month. In the event next month's money doesn't come, that saving is fine. So we have a limited amount of savings within the bank, if you will, or wherever we save it under the mattress or whatever. But if we got $100 million in the bank and we spend, I would say, $10,000 a month, that money is sitting there. It's, to me, that's catering to the lower self when there are so many people in need. So we would be totally out of line in the sense of you can't take it with you, so why keep it, why store it, why save it? A limited amount, yes, but beyond what you need on a monthly or weekly or annual basis, I think it's really catering to the lower self.
Let me just answer that and then I'll get with you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree. I think I'm coming from a different direction where not necessarily saying that why do we have money if we can't take it with you, but really is the emphasis on why do we need the money or how much money do one thinks that we need. It's the emphasis on the money instead of, let's see what I'm really getting at is the energy that's invoked behind why we need finances. I'm saying rearrange the energy into self.
Okay.
That's what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Not saying that we all need finances. We can't live without it, right? But what I'm saying, and evoke the energy of not necessarily, why put, if we 24 hours in a day, this is what I'm saying, 24 hours in a day, so to say. People would work for a majority of 8+ hours a day. How much time, let's say you take an hour to get to work, hour from work, that's 10 hours a day. It's only 24. Now, how much of that time, and you get your 8 hours of sleep, so how much time other than getting this finance that you put into working on self?
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Do you get it better now?
I understand.
So not saying that you can't take it with you, but you got to weigh the options out on how much are you putting to develop yourself without the money, as in you're putting in to get this finance that you can't even take when you're there anyway.
All right, and that's why I needed to understand what you meant by purpose.
It's on.
Okay.
Okay, now I have a totally different take on it. What? Okay. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
It's on. 18. Whose favors must be bought with costly sacrifice of fruits and the lives of birds and animals and humankind. 19. And yet these gods possesses no ears to hear, no eyes to see, no hearts to sympathize, no power to save. 20. The evil is a myth. These gods are made of air, clothed with shadows of a thought. That's falsehood manifest. These gods are made of air, clothed with shadows of a thought. So in our minds, we make up these gods in the sky that we so-called pray to, that's watching over us, quote unquote, but are not there. The God is within self. 21. The only devil from which men must be redeemed is self, the lower self. If man would find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. If man would find his savior, he must look within. And where the demon self has been dethroned, the savior love, higher self, will be exalted to the throne of power. The David of the light is purity, who slays the strong Goliath of the dark, and seeks the savior love upon the throne. Islam. Any other questions before I step down? Brother Mark?
First rise and give praises to the great architect and father of the universe, Allah. Great honors to his prophet, Noble Ali. I give honors to the Grand Sheikh, honorable members and guests, Islam, everything pertaining to Islam.
Islam, honest to you.
I just wanted to build off something that you posed to the class in regards to money. And my take on that is being that a dual message in that, meaning as you kindly broke it down, whereas it's not necessarily the money piece, even though we need money in this capitalistic society, but we have to raise our vibration from just thinking about the money, but working on ourselves.
Indeed.
To acquire, because the riches will be when we reach that, that seventh heaven, that upper self, and maintaining in that space in the worldly or in the fleshly realm of the world. Because then when we are dealing with our lower selves, every finance contact, I got to get here, I got to get this, or I got to grind, I got to get this money. But in that same thought, how are you moving forward in your higher self to get to that point? It's on.
It's all trace of the lower self and will pass away.
Yes, sir.
It will all leave.
Yes, sir.
Islam.
Question from the chat room in YouTube. Where were you reading from?
Chapter 3, lessons, LOU lessons, unity of life. Islam. Brother Flying Gold, be the last question.
I want to first rise and give all praises to Allah, Father of the universe. Give honors to Noble Ali, and give honors to the Harbinger. Give honors to Grand Sheikhs, all the Sheikhs and Sheikhesses, and all the members, and anything pertaining to Islam. And honors to the flags.
Islam. Honors to you, brother.
So I just wanted to build off of just number 16 right there, where it says, "Thrice blessed is the man who has made purity and love his very own." So the prophet is giving us remedy right there, that we could be blessed with making purity and love our own, and with that, making purity and love our own, we'll be ransomed from the perils of the lower self. and is himself the higher self. So if we use those tools, we can
You
ransom
need not
ourselves. Right.
to concern about anything else.
Islam. And then as I'm reading in like Sufism, they have this thing called the nafs. The nafs is the lower self in English. And then you have dunya, which is the materialism.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's said in Sufism to take all of the materialism, which is the dunya, out of your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and then only put Allah in your heart. So now, once you only have Allah in your heart, there's nothing else there. There's no materialism. So you only worshiping Allah within yourself. So that's how you see your higher self within yourself, and be able to focus on that more.
Islam. Gratitude for that. Thank you, family. That concludes my demonstration. Next, I bring up the Grand Sheikh of the Temple, Nature Elbe. Islam.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Islam,
Islam.
Islam,
Islam.
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 Arise in the name of Allah, giving praise to the Almighty, giving honors to His noble and shining prophet in these days and times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, also called in tone, also referred to as Professor Drew. Islam, giving honors to all his faithful Moors, his students, all his adversaries, giving honors to all of you, giving honors to all of our sisters, mothers, and our daughters, to his Moorish children, etc. Islam. So a couple things I want to make reference to. And one of the important things we talked about last week, the brother asked a question about the religious affidavit, so to speak. Not necessarily called that, but just bringing you back to that particular conversation. And it wasn't what I want to clear up is the importance of the term religion. So I'm not trying to define it because we already know what it means. But I want to go into something that's headlines in New Jersey right now, dealing with religious or religious controversy, I should say. And what's going on with that religious controversy is the religious rights and immunities protected by the First Amendment, as I was talking about last week, where the prophet declared certain things for us under the category of religion so that it can be recognized and protected by what is referred to as the First Amendment of the United States of America's Constitution. So he repeatedly told us that we had to proclaim our free national name and religion. For what? To be recognized by the government in which we live, which is local, and the nation of the earth, which is broad and abroad, right? Like you said, national and international, however you want to slice it. So Friday that just passed, New Jersey had an amendment or a bill to the religious rights and immunity with the vaccinations, which is a big deal here in New Jersey because they're trying to become the sixth state to no longer acknowledge the religious rights and immunities for children's immunizations and vaccinations. Not just children, but the state, quote unquote, the government, which is supposed to be the people. But however, the legislation of the state of New Jersey, Inc., no longer wants to recognize the religious rights and immunity of not just children, but adults as well, as far as vaccination goes. So, why is this a big deal? This is a big deal because there's 5 other states, including New York, that already passed this bill where they don't accept religious rights for exemptions, religious exemptions as far as immunizations goes and vaccinations. And it's important that everyone fights for this, regardless if they have children or not, because it also affects them as an adult if they're trying to work in the corporate America or work for a state institution and the state is saying they don't acknowledge it. The state agents will say, "Well, I need this," and my boss or the state is telling me that you have to be vaccinated or whatever. And you saying, "Well, no, I don't. This is my religious affidavit that says that I don't." Now they're going to come back and say, "Well, the state no longer accepts that." It's bigger than the employer because the employer just has to follow whatever the state mandates are. All right. So it's not just some people might say, "Well, I don't have children. My children are older." Well, I don't have children at all, so I'm not concerned with that because the most of the time, the most places where this is exercised and used is really in the school system. Schools will have children, and children is enrolled in school every year. They want to update vaccination form. So Moors with children are always using this every year. Now, what I want to bring to you is it's not just us that's using it. We're a small class of people that's actually using it. It's majority a plethora of other citizens and nationalities actually using exemptions. And what the state is saying is that half of these people are claiming religious exemption and don't even have a religion. That's the problem. And this is why one of the arguments that the state is saying that we got to put brakes on this now because yes, people have religious rights and immunities. However, people are just downloading a form off a line and handing it in and saying it's my religious right not to do this or not to do that. And it goes back to what Drew Ali been saying for over 100 years. You must proclaim your free national name and religion to be recognized. Half of these people are not proclaiming religion at all, right? And are not religious people. However, they pick and choose when they want to use the term religion when they don't want to obligate themselves to something. Um, that's a problem. So I know a lot of people who ask me for a religion, people that's not even proclaimed. A lot of people who go to work, adults I'm talking about, friends, family members. When they need something, they call. "Yeah, can you give me a form for this? Is my job trying to get me?" Like, hold up, it's not for that purpose. You're the one that laugh at this any other time, but now you want a form saying that you agree to something. That's perjury. I'm not putting myself in that position. So now what they have is these forms online that you can just type in and fill in the blank, but it's really not a religious form. And if you just put down something just to make it sound religious, that's still perjury. So again, even more as this proclaims, but most of the time say they don't want to deal with religion or they deal with the national side. They don't want to deal with the divine side. And, people start to play games, but then also still want to pick and choose when they want to use the term religion. You have to be consistent with your constitutional I don't want to say proclamation, but declaration or stance. You need to be consistent in the system because it's going to come down to the point where they start challenging every little thing. Even if they do pass this bill, which Friday everybody rushed the state house because they put it up, they let the citizens come vote on this particular bill. And I mean, flooded the state house. I mean, even outside was packed. They had to close it down. A lot of, uh, a lot of supportive citizens, concerned citizens, are really trying to make a stance and do something about this particular bill. Yeah, they definitely not in agreement with it. A lot of business owners, a lot of concerned families, and as we enter this electrified age, we call it the information age, what we call the Aquarius age, wherever you want to go with it. You might just want to call it the last days. But however, people are rising more towards consciousness and perfection. So therefore, people are getting more health conscious. Even back to Brother Omari's lesson earlier, or people's diets are starting to change. So now the term vegan and vegetarian, and now what they're highlighting the term plant-based diets or foods are becoming more popular. So now more citizens are changing their what they have in their refrigerator now because that's just part of the information age. People changing their diets. Pork is on a downfall. It doesn't sell as much as it used to. Beef don't sell as much as it used to. And this is just it's in the air. It's in the atmosphere. All right, across the board, yes. So therefore, this is why places like Burger King got plant-based food. Even Dunkin' Donuts got it now. They're beyond all of this stuff. They have to keep up with the days of time. McDonald's is next. You have to. It's business, regardless of what their preference is. It's business. So now, if you're in the food chain, you got to up the ante on it. Now you got to go plant based with a lot of your stuff. So that they're starting to change this, and the state, i.e., the government, knows this as well. FDA knows this as well, which is the Food and Drug Administration. That's your department of your state that deals with food and drugs, because food is a drug. Get it? It's one and the same. And I know you know this already. It's the topic is conversation because it's necessary. Now, one thing that I want to go over is the fact that no different from any other drugs in over-the-counter drugs and prescription drugs. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So, of course, powers that be is not going to be too fond of organizations and people withdrawing from this type of medication or drugs, right? Even marijuana. The fact that they're legalizing it is because of business reasons. So you got to look at what legislation has on their desk and what they have to do to keep that industry alive. Just like back in the day, we go back to the days of our forefathers and we deal with the signs of Imhotep and just Moorish consciousness. There was no doctors like that. You might have had a family doctor or a minister or the temple was a doctor, but it wasn't no industry like it is now. So that wasn't, even today in other countries, the medical industry is not really a popular field. And those that are doctors in other countries don't get paid that much because it's not, especially in places like Hindustan or what you call India, This is common household knowledge. They're vegans and herbalists and everything we talk about. They already on that. They live holistic. Majority of the citizens live like that. So each household has a cabinet full of herbs and know what to do for certain situations. They don't run down to the local clinic for every little issue. So doctors in these countries don't make a lot of money. This is why you see them over here all the time. Because the reputation is you come here to make the money. They don't make money at home. The demand for the doctor's services is here in the West because the people are sick here. So the state supposedly favored the bill on Friday and supposed to sign it in 6 months. They pretty much just railroaded the whole plebiscite of the people that was there and showed again that the citizens' votes really don't count. Why? Because most of them are not in the proper status. But it wasn't Asiatics that was there. It was only a few, mainly European descent. However, if something don't fit their agenda, it don't matter. No one's vote really doesn't count if you're not in a living up to constitutional standards of law by name and principles. So they fit their agenda not to pass it, so they're gonna make sure it's not gonna be passed, and they always got justification if the people ain't right. The numbers was there though. So I'm going over this because this is one of the reasons why we have the movement. So it's not just for ourselves, like I always say. It's not for our personal issues, but we have an obligation out these doors. We have an obligation to those type of forums too. So if they feel it's necessary to take off work and go down there and take a stance, then we should be just as down there well represented as well. And that's where citizens and other people start to respect your organization when they see that you stand up for issues that's plural. Not like we just worried about this and we're just worried about that. If that's what the media says, then that's the only thing they're going to think until you show them otherwise. Show them that you care, you're a concerned citizen, and you care about other issues. So back to Drew's statement, take your place in the affairs of men. We have to be where the people be at. We have to concern ourselves with what they feel is also a concern because we all one. It's not like us and them. The record says we are part and parcel. So if they're there, why not us? Like he says that they're helping me, why not you? And they're helping more with the Negro problem than we are. But that is part of the Negro problem. So that issue that bill of vaccinations, immunizations, it's a Negro problem. Negro don't mean black or black people. That's a Negro problem. You can't associate the Negro problem to a certain color of people or a nation of people. A Negro problem is a Negro problem. Whoever falls up under that category is a Negro. Or black. Black is not a group of people either. It's a state of mind. So there's some ways of dealing with that we would deal with some of that off record. But I'm just pointing out the necessity to address this. And in your area, even out the area, this is going to be something that's going to follow suit. It's going to sweep the states eventually. It's going to sweep the states. It's going to become a federal issue sooner or later. Because the FDA is federal. So they're the ones that actually even putting pressure on the states to start doing this before they are forced to make them. So what's all involved with the immunizations and vaccinations? See, and this goes back to the lesson earlier as well. We have to value ourselves. Once we know who we are and what we are and whence we came, then we'll start to set standards for ourselves on how we preserve ourselves, what goes into our bodies, and all these type of things. And not just what we physically eat or drink becomes a concern or standard, is also what we inject into our bodies, what medications we take. So it's all part of diet. Whatever you intake, even information, is also part of Food and Drug Administration. So once you in the know, then you know everything that's related to everything. You can't be gamed anymore. So information is part of that. Air is part of that. What you breathe, it could be toxic. So we're being attacked on so many levels. So many levels. That some of the things that in our present state we can't control. Like certain things, just like chemtrails, we can't directly control it right now. There is a way to protect yourself, but you got to really be higher level, which we're learning how to deal with that. But there's some things that we have within our control that we can protect and counter react, as far as what we choose to intake into our body. So this is why the state passed certain things, because they want to control what you put in your body. They're going to say, all right, well, you want to be plant-based, you want to live this way. I can't be with you all the time and what you put in your body, but I can make you inject something once a year. I can make you indulge in stuff sometimes, and that's how we got to look at things. And they know it, we know it. It's just that once we know that those are issues, like some people might just be self-employed, or some people's job don't require that. But just because your household might not be affected by that, don't mean that you shouldn't be concerned with that and do whatever you can within your power to try to help those who are affected by it, because that falls under the Moors Divine and National Movement. Just issues, constitutional issues, plural, fall up under the Moors Divine and National Movement. Islam, any statements or questions so far? Islam, brother.
Islam, what is now?
Thank you.
What other citizens are like, with us being true citizens, it would still be like, I kind of look at it and I see both sides, because it can be a good thing as well to force other people of other nationalities to look deeper into the movement as far as what we're doing, to have a true constitutional protection, as opposed to a not true American citizen or 14th Amendment citizen having to be obligated to fall under those rules.
Okay, give me an example.
So, like, as a national, I would say, I would still argue that even with the bill being passed, because I'm a constitutionalist by name and principle, so I would feel obligated to argue that. But now the next citizen,
you mean to the state?
Correct.
All right.
Now the next citizen, not so much.
Absolutely. And that's part of what I was talking about earlier, that there is ways, strategies that we'll get together with off record. And it goes back into what they said about other issues, because they don't honor the Constitution. It's not that they don't, the Constitution is not being recognized on many different levels. Every article is discretionary. So it's going to be what they call it, a case by case basis with that too. Just like everything else. If you know and you what you would call learned enough to argue it,
Right.
and they recognize, just like you go to court for any other issue, if they respect your argument and your walk, then you might can get away with it. But if they feel like you're less informed and you really don't have no recourse, then fair game. And that's a sad situation because especially when we talk about children can't defend themselves, so it falls back to those parents again, and it's a case by case basis. And every everything we do is case by case basis. And that's why it's important to really get a fundamental understanding of law, of your civic duty, your social duties, to understand how to defend yourself, because you don't know what they're going to amend next week that might affect you and your household. So people, how they say, well, everything is good or we all good, and people saying they praising Allah and everything is going according to plan in their mind, and then they have no worries, no cares, right? Next week a bill passed that affects you. Now you was the one that thought everything was all good for years. You ain't studied nothing. Now you're confronted with something you got to address, and you don't know and have no idea how to begin to address it. That's the problem. Like, we don't have to be perfect in all subjects. We just got to have a foundation. Once you have a foundation, then you can dip into certain areas when need be, because you understand. You can't just, you're not gonna fall for the okie doke. And that's what they live off of, the okie doke. They expect us to just walk around and like El Haj said, they just expect us to be bamboozled to the point where we don't question nothing. Just like with this bill, hardly any Asiatics down there at the state house. Because in their mind, it ain't concerning them right now, and they can't afford to take off work to deal with it, and they don't even know the repercussions. They don't even know the necessity behind them being there. Islam, brother.
Islam, Grand Sheikh. I was gonna ask what you were saying about how you said that it's the Negro problem with that bill being that bill they're trying to have passed.
Yes.
And because you had people that was going down there that are from different nationalities that are upholding those standards and how they want to keep their their religious beliefs intact within the state where they reside or live. And then now the Negroes that are just on like a routine or the way they live their life, they're going down there and just getting the shots because they think that's a necessity.
Yes.
And that's what they need. But to that fact, that's where, like you said, we as Moorish Americans in the Moorish movement have to come in at, because that's a big problem.
Yes.
It's a big problem because it affects them and without them knowing it. But as we being upright and knowing about it or being in the know, it becomes our problem. So it's like you said, like the Negro problem, like my brother said, the Negro problem is our problem.
Yes. And to highlight what you're saying, it's a First Amendment issue or protection.
Right.
And the state is saying half of these people are not even religious.
Right.
So what obligation now, I blame the advocate, if I'm part of the state, right, the legislative part of the state, I'm saying to the people, like, what obligation do I have to keep this protection there if those that follow the true religion ain't even standing up? Where's the religious representation at? You understand what I'm saying? Those who are in the proper standing to argue and address this and vote for it are not even here. So what obligation do I have to even uphold this amendment? You see this because also in the information age. Look at the okey doke again. Most people are running away from the term religion. Even Asiatics are coming up out the church and becoming more Afrocentric, but when they do that, they're being taught to negate the term religion because they're thinking that's what enslaved them. So even in the path of wisdom, they're toiling after folly, right? So now with this Aquarius age going on, people are getting away with that religious, the rituals, and they're moving away from that whole concept of religion. Churches losing their power, you see. So now the state, that's right up their alley now, because now they can get away with the First Amendment if they wanted to. Because is the plebiscite really there to argue it if the people are running away from it? It's going to become more and more obsolete. So now it makes it harder for those who are that has a strict adherence to religion or the principles behind it, because now they got to stand up. And like Brother Amari said, they got to really go overboard now to say, hey, look, that can't apply to everybody. Now you're going to hear people saying, well, that's unconstitutional. If you don't want to honor the First Amendment, now it forces preachers, ministers, and whoever that come from that concept, it forces them now to become more constitutional to protect what they were getting away with the whole time. And again, with us, for those who know, it forces us to be true representatives, and not just because of the First Amendment, but just because it's a constitutional right and protection. We can't just say, oh, they can't violate the First Amendment, but they're violating the Article 6, Article 1, and everything else every day. Is all right for them to do that? So again, look how we look funny though if we show up because the First Amendment is what's on the table, but we don't show up no other time when Article 1 is on the table. You know, when they got class actions going on for impeachment, Asiatics ain't concerned with that. You understand? But when it's something that directly affects their bottom line, is when they want to voice their opinion. So the state's not going to take that seriously. That's why we got to be consistent, is what I'm saying. In your constitutional stance, you got to be consistent. And sometimes you got to go out your way when it doesn't even apply to you directly, because if it applies to you in the back, it should apply to me. If it's affecting your bottom line, it's affecting my bottom line. And that's when we're dealing with unison. That's how we supposed to operate. And when citizens see that we're consistent in that, that's when they have a greater respect for us. Islam, Brother Mark, you had your hand up.
I find it to be funny that at the same time, just as you mentioned, Jersey is passing this legislation for the shots, but then New York today, undocumented citizens can go and get driver's license tomorrow. So it's a lot of stuff going on in the air as you're speaking on.
Yes.
That they doing this and doing that at different ends of the spectrum. In my opinion, to like confuse and throw off. To have us in kind of like a daze, like in a duality type sense, right?
Yes.
I digress. I just wanted to mention.
No, that's a good point. Let me camel back off of that too. One of the reasons, and New York is not the only state. There's already other states that allows what they call undocumented citizens to get driver's license, especially Mexicans. And the reason why they do that is business.
Right. Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you, you'll say, well, why wouldn't they do that for Asiatics or so-called blacks? The reason why is because Asiatics plural, so-called black, will not pay the funds to get the driver's license or the payment plans or whatever fees that's associated with them getting that. Where the undocumented, so to speak, i.e. Mexicans, will pay whatever. So again, remember, you got to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Now, if you're the legislation of the state in DMV or agent thereof, and your whole thing is business, what would you do? Would you make these provisions for so-called Asiatics where they don't want to pay the surcharges anyway? Most of them can get the license restored, they just don't have the funds to. So what passing a new bill going to do? Or coming up with a program to make them pay something going to do when they already can pretty much meet that requirement? However, the undocumented, so to speak, he can't get it. So now we can put whatever value to that and they'll come running in with no problem. It's business. Doesn't make it right. I'm just saying that that's business. And it's unfortunate that it comes down to business like that. However, knowing that we can't be in that beggar state, back to the lesson again earlier, to the point where we're not even in consideration for anything. To the point where they look at a class of people and say, well, we're not interested in their business because they don't have the funds. Just like that's discrimination, right? Where you can go into a store in certain parts of town and they don't want to serve you. Why? Because they don't think you got the money to pay. That's the situation. That's why that is what it is. That's why we don't get consideration as a nation either. And that's why we don't have representation in places where we need to, is because we don't have the numbers. We do have the numbers, but the numbers, the collective numbers in unison. The unison of the numbers results into dollars, even fiat dollars. And that's who has a voice when it comes to United Nations and any of those, because nations deal with, we talk treaties, right? That's old. They go by what they call trade agreements. That's where the power's at. So a treaty pertains to a peace agreement. Treaties follow wars. So if you're looking at treaties from the 1700s, just give you a concept of how to think. You're talking about 300-400 years since this war took place. They do business with each other right now. They don't care nothing about that treaty. Keeping it real. What they care about is the trade agreements between each nation. Are they doing business together? Or is it a successful business relationship? That comes under what you call trade agreements. Each nation has a trade agreement with each other. And when that's compromised, that's when they don't no longer recognize that nation. This is why you had the issues with oil. This is why wars took place. It's because of trade agreements, not because of treaties. Cuba, same thing. The only reason why they're dealing with Cuba now is because they reinstated the trade agreement. But for years, Cuba did not want to do business with the United States. So that just doesn't deal with oil, or even Venezuela doesn't deal with just oil, but it also deals with sports, entertainment, is where it's more money than oil in some aspects. Because the entertainment industry, now you're dealing with the television, and Cuba now is entertaining baseball games with the United States. Why? Because of the trade agreement was reinstated. Prior to that, no, they wasn't even allowed to go back and forth through airlines. Certain airlines couldn't even go to Cuba, and certain airlines from there couldn't come to the United States. If a trade agreement is not enforced, then there's no commerce between the two nations. So Trump, being a businessman that he is, reinstated the trade agreement because he's looking at the business potential between being friends with a certain nation and not being friends with a certain nation. While some people dealing with emotions and personal issues, he wasn't dealing with it from any of that. That's why he's in that position that he's in. That's why they put him there, to reinstate certain things because of his mindset. He's a businessman. Has nothing to do with his political knowledge. It has everything to do with his business knowledge. That's why he's the president of the U.S. because he's one of the best man for the job from a business perspective. That's why that's his whole pitch. Make America great again is not dealing with the values of American standard, is dealing with the economy. That's why he's always bragging that he, restored the economy. And the economy hasn't been where it's been for years, for decades. So to him, he's doing a great job. And to some other people, he's doing a great job. Regardless of whatever views he has that they disagree with, because the economy is booming, it's worth it in the minds of the people. It's not? So when we're dealing with wealth, we're dealing with economics and economic power. Noble Drew Ali says that we shall be secure in nothing until we have greater economic power. And this is as a nation and also as individuals. So I'm just going into another aspect of the meeting where it's not about having riches in abundance, but it is about having riches as a nation. Because the Negro problem is related to us being a broke nation. Dead nation is broke. Like when we talk about black means dead or deaf, that relates to also minority, which means insufficient funds. So I'm just talking about how we're looked at as a group or a class of people, where we were reduced from the nation concept or classification by way of our resources being compromised. So they won't recognize us socially, politically, or like Drew said, economically. He understood that this is like over all the other issues we might concern ourselves with. And this is what he focused on the most because he knew that without finances, that we wasn't going to really be a successful nation. He said it takes finances to save a nation or to uplift a nation. So just giving us a couple some what you would call encouragement, reasons to be concerned with the back to the immunizations. A lot of jobs require them. Sports require them. So because you're already familiar with how New York went through this whole thing already, a lot of the concerned citizens that really stand for this type of demonstration, a lot of what you would call residents of New York actually went to homeschool. And when homeschool became an issue because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're all good because you homeschool. It still affects children because they can't play sports for the local uh, community. All right. So it still boxes them out even if you homeschool. But a lot of the residents left the state just because of that bill. Some of them were at the Jersey demonstration because some of the citizens that's here now were citizens that were in New York that left New York because of the bill. So now New Jersey went to pass this bill and they're saying the same thing. Well, we'll keep it moving. And that's the threat right now at the State House in Trenton. Citizens are threatened to withdraw their residents from New Jersey if they pass the bill. Some probably don't mean it, but some do mean it. But that's how serious it becomes to people who stand for certain things. They're willing to do whatever they got to do. Problem is, if they make it uniform eventually, then then the person got to go to a whole nother demonstration. But until then, they just keep it moving. What is in these vaccinations? This is what we have to know. Because, like I said, some people might not be concerned because they don't think it's an issue. It's not really a big deal to them. But now, if you go into what's in it and what's going on, just like some people take the flu shot, some people don't. Like, let's just keep it real. You're still dealing with like some of the similar ingredients. The flu shot. Consciousness, some people think that the flu shot actually prevents you from getting the flu. Same thing with the immunizations. We need to know these things. As far as the ingredients in the vaccinations, I'm sure some of you might know more about it than me. I know some things about it, but regardless of what's in it, I never was with it. However, there are aborted fetuses that's injected into these immunizations. There are hormones that goes into these immunizations. Human hormones and animal hormones, both. That makes up these vaccinations, and also viruses that goes into it. So just like a flu shot or immunization shot, these are things they inject you with the virus itself. The whole concept of what they're claiming is not right. Everything all right out there? And again, there's several different things that go into this, and I don't want to go too far in depth, but please be more informed if that's what you're dealing with, so you can understand how to counter react it and go around it. Yes, sir.
I wanted to add on to what you were saying about the March leaders discourage message to America.
Yes.
When it said, like, when the topic here, um, we shall be secure in nothing until we have economic power.
Mm-hmm.
A beggar people cannot develop the highest in them, nor can they obtain to a genuine enjoyment of the spiritualities of life.
Yes.
So when I was thinking about it, I'm thinking about how sometimes, some people say that illnesses start off in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So when the prophet mentions spiritualities of life, I'm seeing this as a part of them going with the mind state of having this thing put inside of them, immunizations, to keep them from getting it. But in return, it really activates something inside of your body, the carnal self, to actually involve you in getting lowering your immune system to get this.
Yes, absolutely. Islam. So before I close that particular chapter, anybody have anything that I didn't mention on this topic that might be useful to the situation? Yes, sir.
What I find that is very useful to this is that prophet is making a statement that the condition that we are in are completely our fault. We accept these here. We accept these terms and situations, like the Grand Chief said. We don't go and protest of anything. You know, other people that don't look like us is going to exercise their constitutional obligations. And when we neglect our constitutional obligations, that makes us a beggar people. We're talking about, and that puts us behind the eight ball with things constitutionally because we don't exercise it. That's why we're looked down upon like we are. Those by design is our fault. That if it's our fault if we don't rise above it to make the necessary changes. That's all I have to say.
It's not. Absolutely correct. So again, I can't not stress enough that we need to show other citizens that we are part and parcel. That's not just something that we repeat when we open and close a meeting. Like we have to take our place and be out there. And you know, we go anywhere else we want to go. We can get to any place we want to get to. There's a show going on, we want to get there. We find our way to get to these places. We got to show just as enough concern about going to some of these forums. You know, and being on the scene, being a part of headlines, and letting them see that we're concerned with the sacrifices there. That we're willing to sacrifice other lines of life to the cause. You know, and that's very important. So. So we're dealing with Capricorn. And Capricorn has a strange energy. Strange energy. And the key word for Capricorn is I use, but it can also be represented as used, meaning being used. So there's a polarity to it. You can utilize or use, or you could be used. And I want to speak about that, for example, for a minute. You're dealing with this whole Capricorn energy. We started off the lesson with Elihu's lessons, right? So the Elihu's lessons deals with your two selves, higher self and your lower self. Right. So it's going back to Capricorn again. You're either going to use or be used. So what is being used? It's the lower self. What do I mean by all of that? This particular time era represents the sun being at its lowest point. The sun is not Allah, but what is it?
Noblest
The
image.
noblest image.
Most noblest image. So the most noblest image of Allah is at its lowest point. So I want you thinking about this for a minute. So man has two selves, right? So regardless of what we are vibrating on majority of the time, now we are at our lowest point because we are the sun, right? So man and woman is also at their lowest point right now. So who is using that energy to their advantage? The elite and the commercial entities, so to speak. No better time for the biggest holiday than when the people are weak and at their lowest point. Why? Because they become great consumers. Do you know that it's not just the coldest time of year and people get the sickest during this time of year? This is not all a coincidence. But they emotionally and mentally become very sick this time of year as well. And it's the highest time of the year of stress around what they call holiday time, especially for Asiatic people, because they're not financially secure to support this time of the year. So everything related to that is a domino effect from there. But what I mainly want to focus on right now is because every holiday we try to kind of like go into some lessons and try to give our people something to work with, right? How to utilize your lessons to rise to the occasion. We have to use not just the holiday, because the holiday is a holy day. There are positive aspects and positions of every time of year or every holiday, and we give sometimes these powers to be too much credit and say that this is their holiday, and we withdraw from it just like we do religion, and don't understand the positive aspects of the holiday and what they really stand for. So we get the low end of the stick because of what we think. We seclude ourselves from the universal consciousness of something, of what's going on, just by not knowing what's up. So again, December 25th, 2 and 5 is 7. 7 represents perfection, right? That's not the organic date of Christmas. Christmas changed a few times, different dates. However, that's not the focus point. I just want you to see what's being done so you can kind of put brakes on the attack and utilize what's going on to your advantage. People that's in retail can really relate to what I'm saying, because this is the time where a lot of commercial businesses have a big come up, very big come up, where they wait all year round for this one point. They don't care what losses they take on other parts of the season. But they, like right now, it's just about the end of it. Look at how Asiatics, on the flip side, not putting us down, but just saying how it goes. Right now, we're trying to get some money in our hand. We haven't even reached what we need to reach yet. Even people who do celebrate it, half of the people haven't even begun their shopping yet. Why? Because the finance ain't there yet. Where people on the other side of the coin most of them already done. It's a reason for that. But it's a commerce season for for businesses, they're the ones who really enjoy the holiday. They're the ones who really take advantage of the holiday, of what they call Christmas, regardless if they celebrate it or not. Half of them don't even believe in it. A lot of commercial businesses is owned by Jews, and a lot of Jews don't even celebrate it.
Period.
But it's a big come up for them, so they will go along with the ritual for commercial reasons, but they do not celebrate that. But we'll have, and Moors say that we the real Jews and all that, right? But we don't do what they do. We withdraw from the whole concept and home scratching our head trying to figure out what should we be doing? How do we pay our bills? What should we do? We have a substitute called, our Moorish festivities, a Moorish Christmas, some people call it, and we can't even indulge in that properly because we didn't plan. So just dealing with the metaphysical aspect of the 7. Chapter 7 of the Quran. Chapter 7 within you. 7 represents perfection. 7 also represents Christ, represents Jesus in some schools of thought, represents justice in some schools of thought, represents Christmas in some schools of thought. Christmas in some schools of thought means Christ. What is it all about? What is it really dealing with? It's all dealing with the sun. X in some schools of thoughts means unknown. X in some schools of thoughts means sun. Mother and child. Wherever you want to go with it. The point of it is what's going on with the energy. The lower self is really heightened or advanced this time of year because the sun is at its lowest point. So far as vegetation, growth, and development, even business deals are at its lowest point because the sun is at its lowest point. For those that deal with the zodiac, understanding its energies, or the wheel, the circle of life, clock of destiny, whatever you want to say. Circle 7, it's all the same. But because this is who we are the circle 7. Back to last week's lesson, right? Because this is who we are, not something that we're reading or studying or part of a group, because we're really saying that we know we are who we say we are, talking about add up. But that's what we are. So we have to manipulate the energy and take what is referred to as a negative and balance it, polarize it, and turn a negative into a positive. Not be on the other side of the spectrum and be vulnerable and become targets and become victims in any of the quadrants or cardinal points, seasons. Understand what we're talking about? The circle? The circle are seasons, phases of you, of us. So we got to take advantage of what's going on and know that we at our lowest point. We're vulnerable. Arguments going to take place. Finances rough. Understanding that we have to mentally be prepared to balance that and be aware of what we're doing, where we go, things that's taking place, and try to channel our energies better, save money. There's a whole lot of things that come along with this. Diet is important because our immune system is already weak because everything is going on. There's a lot of rituals that's being done. Television has certain codings and signals and programs all developed to target the victim, consumers, etc., just by watching television. Just by a commercial coming on, the commercial becomes a ritual, is attacking you where you might not even know you being attacked. You waiting for another program, but you being programmed by another program. It's ridiculous. But if you don't have a defense system, then you're just being attacked by so many angles. Now we walk around and we just confused, we're stressed out, and don't know why. And it results into other things that we're doing. Children, partnerships, marriage, whatever you want to call it, work. It just carries on like a domino effect because we become targets and don't understand how to defend ourselves. Walking around in shopping places during this time of year, now you all emotional, stressed out. Certain things you just gotta stay away from, especially during certain times when the attack is on. If they're having a shootout across the street, you're not just gonna walk through the shootout. That would be obviously dumb, right? Well, it's the same thing that we're being attacked during certain times of the year in certain places. You got to stay away from that. Not just get strong and got a defense where you're able to just overcome that, then that's one thing. Become that exception. But just generally speaking, not understanding what's going on, we have to build up that defense system, especially if you got children, because they don't have that defense system, and they're the ones that's going to stress you out, that they don't understand. And that's very hard, keeping them out of those type of situations. Turn the TV off so they don't ask questions and what they doing and what's that all about. Then they start hearing those programs and start singing the songs. Then you tell them stop singing that. But then it's your fault because they introduced to it just by because you understand what I'm saying? It's hard. There's no one way to deal with that. I'm just saying it's everything that we're involved with deals with that. And this is why we gotta, think Moorish.
You see,
Mm-hmm.
just as you were speaking on that, I was listening to it's on a WhatsApp program.
Mm-hmm.
They got this thing called, you probably hear it as Hulu,
Yes.
but there's a lot behind that Hulu thing that you're speaking on it in terms,
Mm-hmm.
but the average person is not aware of it. As a fact, I just happened to find it on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
One of the brothers sent it to me, and as I looked at it, it totally drugged my mind
Mm-hmm.
in the way that they expressed it.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke on it, but when they were speaking on it on this Hulu app, it goes in deep as to the many patterns that's out there and how it is affecting us, and we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It says even through the phone,
Mm-hmm.
through the many different satellites and televisions and what are they called? The cameras that they have out there now.
Yeah.
And it's all around us,
Mm-hmm.
affecting us at a deeper level, and we don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you did say, there are ways to protect yourself against these frequencies, for lack of a better word. But you have to really study it to find out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send the Luke the information to you.
Mm-hmm.
It is astonishing the way they express it.
Yes, Islam, thank you, and thank you for recognizing that. And it's just, again, we can't, how we know what the deal is. Just think about the unfortunate people who don't even want to hear what you're talking about. That's our problem.
Yeah.
Because the lesson tells us that no man lives unto himself. So we still are one with the Asiatics. We're one with the people calling themselves Negroes and blacks. We're still one with them. So regardless of what we know, we're still affected by what they don't know. So it's a uphill battle with that. Just like dealing with relatives. You know, you feel like you're an island by yourself. So, but you're still one with these people that you disagree with. How do you deal with that? You can't just isolate yourself altogether. So how do you deal with it? It's something we have to have tolerance for and unity, and you got to have a strategy dealing with this. That's why we got to try to teach people much as we can. When the lesson tells us that we are teaching our people, I mean, we can't put enough emphasis on that, because if you don't, that's the repercussion behind not teaching people. It's that you become vulnerable with them. Like they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So regardless of what they're out there doing, we're still affected by what they're doing. Regardless of, we can just say we on another, don't matter. We got the same status when it comes down to it. Islam. Fine, go.
I had one thing
Yeah.
to what you and what the brother was talking about.
Mhm.
And it came to me when y'all built it, when y'all built on it. It was saying to me that because these elites or whoever these people are that's demonstrating this,
Mhm.
they mastered the lower self, so to speak. On the way I'm seeing it. They
Mhm.
mastered the lower self because of the carnal realm
Mhm.
that we are in, and knowing that we are spiritual beings, but we are still falsehood, truth and falsehood strangely mixed,
Mhm.
which is Allah and man,
Yes.
the spiritual, the holy breath in man.
Mhm.
They know that that's a part of us.
Mhm.
They don't really care too much about that. So what they're doing is manipulating the ethers
Yes.
with our carnal, killing us in that way,
Mhm.
because that's their frame of mind anyway, where they're on their level.
Absolutely. So back to the question Brother Omari asked earlier, what does the lower self give? And it was speaking about is rich in promises, poor in blessedness. You understand? The lower self is what gets people paid. Those same elite people you was talking about. So they manipulated the energies to make commerce and finances and money off the lower self. So the lower self became the billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry. It is the lower self. So what they sit there and do is just categorize and classify everything that the lower self, or what matches, what's a vibrational match for the lower self. If it's products, if it's food, if it's entertainment, and then they create an industry or market behind a vibrational match for the lower self. And the business owners of that, whether, like I said, whether it's products or whatever, they make millions and millions of fiat off of providing a service that caters to the lower self. That's the same thing they did with the holiday. So they reverse understanding of what this time of year really represents, and they made money off of it. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I see in all of that is that the way they manipulate the energies of, like, the holidays and all of the monies and all of those things that can cater to the lower self, is that they create an environment where all we have time to do, even with time, they create an environment that all we have time to do is focus on the material things in life, the finances, the whole 9 yards, which actually prevents us from ever really focusing on our higher self. And the more we focus on the lower self, chasing the dollar, for example, the more we focus on our lower self, the less we focus on our higher self, which means we really never get to know Allah that is within us, or any part of Allah. So we're constantly living a lower self life. And it kind of goes back to what Flying Gold was saying about uh, creating more and more of our higher self, which more and more eliminates our lower self, whereas we wouldn't be caught up in all of this shenanigan that the system, if you will, provides
Absolutely.
for us to stay connected to our
To even
lower self.
highlight what you're saying, the demand for the lower self wouldn't even be a demand
Exactly.
if we rose to the occasion collectively. It's not even about it's about the desiring mind. Like people demand the lives of thousands, as the Quran says. What does that mean? Meaning that hunting butchers is only an industry because of the desiring mind behind it. If the desiring minds did not want, just say, cow, meat, pig, or whatever, then there would be no butchers. There wouldn't be, it wouldn't be an industry for that. It wouldn't be a market for that, is what I mean. So it's the desiring mind that creates the industry itself, not the industry. The industry doesn't corrupt the people, it's the desiring mind. And that's how Drew Ali addressed this whole situation, by trying to change our desiring mind. He told us that our desires are frail. We're weak. Mentally, we're weak. So the weak mind creates the demand for the elite to even do whatever they're doing. But we blame the elite for doing what they're doing. Back to the vaccinations and all that. Majority of our people are demanding the flu shot. So now it's justified for them to put these prerequisites in there for the flu shot and put them into your local pharmacies now. Because the people think that they need that. And they will fight thinking that it needs to be something that they offer. Health insurance, same thing. All these things that we don't need, a demand is there for it, and the people are the ones that fight for it. The 14th Amendment. We're fighting like mad behind the 14th Amendment, telling our people they don't need it. But it's our same people that's creating the demand for the 14th Amendment. So the state sits back and says, it's just like the concept that we used to blame them for killing our people. Now we say we killing ourselves. And they just sit back, and that's their argument now. Well, we ain't doing that. That's y'all killing each other. It's the same thing with the demand for everything that we deal with.
But they set the plebiscite.
We set the plebiscite. There is no them. The them is right here. It's us. It's the mind. Yes, but the way Drew Ali really taught us that, like you said it earlier, the only devil that man needs to be redeemed from is self. His name is self. When we really hold ourselves accountable to that lesson, there is no more them. There is no they. There is none of those teachings. Absolutely, but again, it's the mind. It's the mind that creates this. It's the mind that creates the product, that creates the industry, that created the fiat. Everything we disagree with is something that was created with our mind. And until we change our mind, we can't change the reality of what we created. We only can reverse manifest now. This is what manifest actually means. We can't or kill the manifest until we kill what changed it, or what created it, which is the mind. Back to the one-on-ones, which we call children lessons. What did the higher self say to the lower self when he met him? Where are you going, Satan? Well, who is Satan? Satan is self. Satan has a mission, but we desired Satan. We created Satan, and we manifested Satan. We brought Satan into existence, and now we got a problem with Satan. You understand the concept? Now we're blaming Satan for what Satan is doing. Satan is going to and fro seeking whom he may devour. We got a problem with that. We're calling Satan evil now and unconstitutional. But we created that and we're not holding ourselves accountable for what Satan is doing. That's where we're missing the lesson at. That we want to keep charging people and don't charge ourselves. When Satan is bound in part. The lesson is telling us everything we need to know. Honestly. Satan is bound in part, but we charging Satan and laughing at Satan and thinking Satan don't have nothing to do with us. And I'm not saying nobody in this room. I'm just saying exactly. We charging other people, white man's the devil. No, he's not. No, he's not. Nobody's the devil except us. We can't charge an organization, a group, a nationality, nobody until we charge ourselves first. And Drew Ali mimicked that when he said he traveled in the South, he examined the conditions there. He said it was the work of his people, his own people. He didn't say it was somebody else and this group and this nation. He didn't say it was the KKK. He didn't say none of that. He said it was the work of his own people that was practicing these Negro things. And that's the lessons that we don't want to face and we don't want to deal with. And we keep looking for scapegoats by going into other lessons and claiming to be universal and cosmetic, and we don't have to deal with the lessons that's right in front of us. And this is why we suffer from our problems. And again, we create the December 25th ritual just because we haven't done anything about it. Say it again.
Accepted, or it said go along just to get along because it's been traditionally done by my mother, my grandparents, so forth and so forth. It actually comes into grandchildren. It said teach the children, right? Mm-hmm. Teach your children while they're young about it. Then they won't grow up putting pressure on you. Mm-hmm. This is what you're saying, that they use all of these these are master sorcerers. So they use all of this that they know that we are a true spiritual people. So they keep it blinded so that our children won't, because they put on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, they know how to use the spell. Mm-hmm. So it's up to us to teach them so that when they see this, they won't get trapped up in it, and we won't get trapped up in having to feel like we're obligated to honor them.
Absolutely. So again, so just to sum up this whole lesson, trying to vibrate off of the spirit of the highest self, and that whole demonstration of we got to rise to the occasion. We got to teach people. We got to bring understanding to the rituals, the holidays, what's going on. Take that position. Don't just isolate yourself and run away from what's going on in reality. We created something, now we got to deal with it. So now, December 25th is a reality. It's not going away just like that. Utilize December 25th to your advantage. That's up to us to find out what that is and what to do. Whether or not we're holding programs, teaching people, doing some type of charity, giving gifts, whatever it is, utilize it for positive. What are we doing to balance karma? Because that's really what it comes down to be. Is this time of year, the sun at its lowest point is really karmic. It's the lowest point. It's the season of death. Nothing grows. No light, no life. From that perspective. So you got to understand that a lot of businesses fold. This is why January 1st, which is called the New Year, comes right after December 25th. It has nothing to do with a new year. It's the new year commercially. It's called the fiscal year. It has nothing to do with the new year or the beginning. A new year means the beginning. January 1st is not the beginning of the life cycle. It's the lowest point of the life cycle. So what businesses do is close and close their books because they understand that cycle. This is a bad time of year to make business deals, partnerships, big decisions, just dealing with the energies. This is how the elite deals with things. This is not the time of the year to make big business decisions because of the energy is already against you. It's against all of us universally in this hemisphere. So therefore, it's not a great time to make big moves, big business decisions. That's why everything comes to a halt right now and is put on pause. The elite put stuff on pause right now. They're not signing no big deals. It's not too many mortgages going down because it's a chance that they're taking financially. And right now the energy is not in their favor. So mortgage companies, those type of people, investors, they're not making no moves right now until what? March, which is the real new year.
Right.
So again, they give us things to play with and they deal with the real stuff. And we all going out partying, dancing, going to see the ball drop, getting all drunk, wasted, people getting sick, dying. And you got to understand, disease is at its highest point right now.
That's right.
And they said most people get very ill after Christmas because of what they eat during Christmas.
That's right. Thanksgiving too.
It's ridiculous.
That's right.
But everybody think it's the time of jolly. You know, like everybody this is like the time where everybody's happy and healthiest, and it's not.
No, it's not.
That's the emotions, but it's not the reality. Islam, Brother Omari.
Islam was saying even the 101s confirm it says according to science, what is the year? 7 days,
Islam.
which is a planetary cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So a fiscal year, or like you said, a true new year would be from spring equinox to spring equinox. Not where everything is dead. There's no life.
Absolutely. Islam. So that's a understanding that we have. And even in the Moorish realm of things, this is why we honor January 15th as our Moorish New Year. And we all, the universal New Year is the equinox, like the brother just said. January 15th is a New Year because we mark January 8th, the Prophet's celebration, which is Christmas to us. And a week later, which is 7 days, which is a year later, becomes our New Year, according to Moorish science. So that's Moorish thought related. Temple consciousness function off those days because following the format and the program of how things operate. 7 days is a new year. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of Moors function off of this and really follow that suit. A lot of Moors don't understand it because they were, never aware of that. So again, that's in January 8th, it goes even deeper than that. We're coming to the close of the meeting. But January 8th also is a Eastern date of what we call the sun cycle or Christmas from an Eastern perspective. So Egypt celebrated on January 8th. January 7th in some countries, January 8th in others. So it's no coincidence that Drew Ali's Earth Day is January 8th, and he marked that Moorish Christmas. So you got, again, there's a lot of different thoughts behind that, and as you unfold, your God unfolds, your understanding unfolds. But everything is metaphysical, is what we're saying. So it's up to you to unfold into that thought, and you teach you and yours according to how you understand. Islam? But just make sure that you have other people observe this around you, as far as employers, your job place. You got to let them know this January 8th is that's my holy day, my holiday. And, same thing like everybody's entitled to their religious day. If not, as no other days of the year, everybody's entitled to that one day, that Christmas day that they, some people got to work, but that's by choice. But January 8th, you gotta show them that you're serious about that day as well, and let them know what that day represents to you. And it's actually been deemed a national holiday. So it's not like it's just something we're saying. Most states will honor that if you show them the joint resolutions behind it. So that brings us to the closing. Thank everybody for their due diligence, patience, and the lesson. So we're going to be hitting it next week as well. So we're going to a little deeper demonstration next week on the metaphysics behind December 25th in the zodiac. Islam. So the collections we'll do coming now or after a close?
She's gonna come
All right.
after it's closed.
Islam. In lieu of the proclamations, I won't read them at this time. So we'll just rise for the Moorish American prayer. All those who do not wish to participate may stay seated in silent benediction. For all those who do, we rise and face the eastern seaboard. 5 fingers on the left, 2 on the right. Standing squarely affirm. Repeat after Sister Jamila.
May Allah
May Allah
bind our hearts and minds
bind our hearts and minds
back to our ancient forefathers,
back to our ancient forefathers.
divine creed and principles,
Divine creed and principles.
and this we
ask
in thy holy name,
in thy holy name,
and the 7 Elohim,
and the 7 Elohim.
Amen.
Amen. Islam. War. Meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Family. Good. Was there someone that was in the hospital, something like that? No?
Islam. Once that goes
Okay.
off, if everybody be still for after the collection, just nobody leave their area for a second. I want to make an announcement, please. So just nobody leave. Brother Flying, can you come up for 1 second, please?